All right, let's take a look at domestic sex trafficking, the survivor's perspective by Carly Church, TED Talk for educational purposes.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm really grateful that I get to come and speak to you all about something that I'm so passionate about. So I'm going to speak to you today about domestic sex trafficking. This is something I hold very dear, being a survivor of domestic sex trafficking myself. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and I've dedicated my life to bringing awareness to this ever-growing issue. So today what I want to focus on in the time that I have is I'd like to define domestic sex trafficking for you. I want to paint a picture of what human trafficking looks like in an Ontario context and walk you through the stages of commercial exploitation to give you an idea of what this really looks like. Media and movies portray human trafficking to look one way, and it looks completely different than that. And then I want to end by talking about how we can all ignite change. I'm a huge believer that education is power, and I often wonder if somebody came into my high school when I was growing up, would this have happened to me? Or would I have been able to identify those red flags before it was too late? I'm not sure, but I think I would have been equipped with a lot more information that would have helped me when this started to happen to me. So I'm going to jump right in, and I really want to start by defining those words, domestic sex trafficking. So I'm going to differentiate between domestic and international so we can understand that they look completely different. So the best way to differentiate between the two is to think of it the exact same way you would if you were to walk into an airport. Really, you have two choices. You can take a domestic flight or you can take an international flight. If you take an international flight, it means you're getting on that plane in one country and you are landing in a completely different country. If you take a domestic flight, it means you're getting on that plane in one country and you land in the exact same country. Means the same thing when it comes to human trafficking. International human trafficking means you are from one country and you're brought to another country for the purpose of exploitation or the purpose of trafficking. Domestic human trafficking means you are from one country, either born and raised or have come to this country for whatever reason, nothing to do with trafficking, call this country your home and then are trafficked within that country. The majority of human trafficking that occurs in Canada is domestic sex trafficking. The UN's stat says that 71% of all trafficking that occurs in Canada is domestic sex trafficking. That means this is happening to our young people. This is happening to people in your schools, in your communities, in your neighborhoods. It is not an issue that is happening somewhere else. It is happening to people here that call Canada their home. Next, I really want to give you that definition of what human trafficking is. So human trafficking really is an umbrella term. There's many forms of human trafficking, but again today I'm only talking about domestic sex trafficking. The reason being is that's my area of expertise, and that's the majority of what we see here in Canada. So the UN has a definition for human trafficking. The Criminal Code has a definition for human trafficking. They're very long, they're wordy, they're hard to remember. I have a cheating definition. It's super easy to remember, so I use it all the time. There's 4 elements that have to be present in order for human trafficking to exist. If you have these 4 elements, then you have human trafficking. So there needs to be force, there needs to be fraud, there needs to be coercion, and it all needs to be facilitated by a third party or a group of people. So somebody behind the scenes doing it to you and profiting from you. Force, fraud, coercion, facilitated by a third party. That is the definition of human trafficking. If all those elements are present, then you have human trafficking. So now that we understand what human trafficking is by the definition, I really want to paint a picture for you of what it actually looks like. Because what I said when I first walked in here is that movies and media portray human trafficking to look one way, and they look completely different. So the education that I got growing up around what human trafficking was from movies, and I was taught wrong. So I'm going to walk you through the stages of commercial exploitation. This chart was developed by listening to survivors' stories. This is how it happens. Every single young person I have ever worked with has been brought through these stages. This is a thought-out psychological process that people are brought through in order for somebody to have control and manipulation over. So I'm going to walk you through stage by stage. The first stage is the luring stage, and in this stage, this is when your trafficker begins to assess your vulnerabilities. So somebody isn't just pointing out somebody in a crowd and being like, I'm going to traffic this person. It is thought out. And that's what that luring process is for. So in this luring process, your trafficker is going to begin to assess your vulnerabilities. He's looking for somebody who's vulnerable. He's looking for somebody who has both individual risk factors and societal and systemic risk factors. He is going to begin to test the waters to figure out these vulnerabilities. He's going to put feelers out. He's going to see if you're going to be, if you will be able to buy what he's selling. He does this by asking you a million questions. And it does not feel like you're being interrogated, and it does not feel like you're being interviewed. It feels incredibly, incredibly special. That for once somebody's taken time out of their life and asked you about yours. For once somebody stopped and noticed you were struggling and asked you about it. He's going to ask you about your life. He's going to ask you about your family, your friends. He's going to ask you about your hopes and dreams for the future, the struggles you've been through. And he's going to listen to everything. And what he's doing in this moment is he's gathering information that he's later going to use against you. But in that moment, it feels incredibly good. So you're going to tell them anything and everything. The other thing that they do in this stage is they're going to look at every single one of your basic needs that are not being met, and very quickly they're going to begin to meet them. So it moves to that next stage, that grooming and gaming stage, also known as the honeymoon stage. So they are going to begin to meet every single one of your basic needs. If you told them in that luring stage that you didn't feel safe at home or you didn't have a safe place to stay, they're going to offer you a safe place to stay. They're going to take you shopping. They're going to get your hair done, your nails done. They are going to wine and dine you. They are going to shower you with compliments, boost your self-esteem, boost your self-worth. They're going to begin to introduce you to all their friends. They're going to make you feel a part of something, that sense of belonging, that sense of family. They're going to tell you things like they're going to keep you safe, that they're never going to let anybody hurt you again, that no matter what, they're going to be there for you. They're continuing to ask you questions and be interested in your life during this stage as well. 85% of the young people I work with identify their trafficker to be their boyfriend or their girlfriend. So we also know it's incredibly, incredibly relational. Even that other 15% is usually quite relational. It's usually a companionship or a friendship, or in fact a family member that's doing it to you. If drugs are involved in this stage, they're going to be given to you freely, no questions asked. If they're not involved, they might keep it that way, or they could introduce them in a very playful way. Whatever you need, I've got for you. If you are in that loving relationship, it feels as if you have met your dream man. It feels as if you have hit the jackpot, as if finally your luck has turned around. I cannot stress enough that in this stage, it feels as if this is the best your life has ever been. Even if your life was not that bad before, they took the time in that luring stage to get to know everything that was lacking in your life. And now they're providing it for you. So this feels as if this is the best your life has ever been. There's little to no red flags in this stage. The biggest red flag is it is too good to be true, and who wants to believe that this is too good to be true if nobody has ever treated you this way before? The red flags don't come in until the next stage. So the next stage is the coercion and manipulation stage. This is when your trafficker begins to give you all that love and affection and then pulls it all away. And then gives you all that love and attention and then pulls it all away. It's like you're walking on eggshells. You're wondering, is he going to have a good day today or is he going to have a bad day today? You actually start to think in your mind, what did I do wrong? I must have done something wrong because I know he's capable of treating me better than anybody has ever treated me before, so I must have done something. You actually start to think in your mind that you start to feel indebted in the relationship. He's done so much for me in this relationship. What have I done to contribute? So you might actually start to think things in your mind that you can offer in that relationship. But before you can do that, he's going to start to ask you to do things. And he's going to ask you to do things that you're probably not comfortable doing, or they're going to ask you to do things that maybe you talked about in the luring stage that you said you would never do. Those are things that you held on to. Those are your morals and your values that you were never willing to step out of that comfort zone. He's now going to ask you again in this coercion manipulation stage. And you're going to be much more likely to say yes because you just want it to go back to that honeymoon stage. You just want him to treat you in a way that you know he's capable of treating you, which is better than anybody has ever treated you before. So as soon as you start to do those things, he's going to give you all that love and attention back. And then he's going to pull it away again, and he's going to ask you to do something else. And as soon as you do it, he's going to give you all that love and affection back. What he's doing is he's breaking down your boundaries, your morals, and your values, and then he's rewarding you for them. So he could ask you to do things that are sexual or not sexual. If they're not sexual, they might ask you to do things like hold drugs for them or lie for them or look out while they commit a crime or rob somebody maybe. And immediately after, they give you all that love and attention back. Or it could be sexual. This is where they start to desensitize you to certain sexual acts, prepare you for the sex trade. So they might ask you to send that naked picture they've been begging you for. They might ask you to make a video with them. They might ask you to have sex with one of their friends. And immediately after, they give you all that love and affection back. It goes back to that honeymoon stage, and then they pull it all away again. This is an incredibly confusing time. The other thing that they're going to do in this stage is they might do something called conditioning, where they have sex with you, and shortly after, they take you shopping. Or they have sex with you, and shortly after, they take you to get your hair done or your nails done. And then that slowly gets replaced by cash. They'll have sex with you, and then they'll throw you $60 and say, oh, baby, that's amazing. You're so good at that. Go treat yourself. Go do something nice for yourself. Your brain actually starts to associate sex with a reward, sex with money. The last thing that they do in this stage is they're going to build a wedge between you and anybody who's healthy in your life. So they're going to pick fights with your friends. They are going to blow up stories that you maybe told them way back in the luring stage, that something that your family or loved one did to you that really hurt you. They're going to blow it up and amplify that. They want to build that wedge. They want, when something goes wrong in your life, that the first person that you call is them. They want you to be 100% dependent on them. I used to work with a young woman who her trafficker actually used to go into her phone and delete messages from loved ones who were reaching out. She actually started to believe nobody else cared about her, that he was the only one that loved her. He was the only one that she could depend on. This is when he has you exactly where they want you. This is when they'll bring up the idea of working in the sex trade. This is when it moves to that full-on exploitation stage. And they may bring up that idea of working in the sex trade in a variety of different ways, but it's usually either extremely direct or the complete opposite, incredibly, incredibly insidious. So if it's direct, he's literally going to say to you, you know all that stuff I've done for you? The clothes I bought you, the condo you've been staying in, the drugs I've given you, it's actually not free. You owe me money, and this is how you're going to pay me back. And if you don't do it, I'm not going to love you anymore. I'm not going to be there for you anymore. I'm not going to take care of you anymore. I'm going to circulate that video we made. He's got all the ammo he needs to use against you to get you to take your first trick. And once you do, then again, he's got even more ammo to keep you there. If he goes with the insidious route, what he's going to do is he's going to bring up the idea of working in the sex trade by playing off information he gained from you way back in the luring stage. So maybe in that luring stage, you told him that your dream for the future was to one day create your own loving, supportive family. Maybe you told him growing up you never had that, and that was your dream. You wanted to one day get married and buy a house and have kids and really create that loving, supportive family. So he's going to say something to you like, you know that life you want to have? You know that wedding you want, that house you want, those kids you want? I love you so much, and I don't want to wait any longer. I can't picture my life without you. I got this crazy idea. We'll make stacks of cash. We'll only have to do it for a couple months, and no matter what, I'm going to love you. No matter what, I'm going to be there for you. Of course you're going to say yes. He just sold you a dream. Your exact dream that you told him way back in the luring stage. This is what human trafficking looks like. It does not look like the movies. You're not kidnapped. You're not moved from place to place. You're not locked in a room. You're not beaten every day. This is what it looks like. I want to touch on why it's not as simple as asking somebody to leave, because it is horrific. Just because you believe somebody loves you doesn't mean you don't have to do things that you never thought you would do before. You have absolutely no control. So I can tell you from my experience, my traffickers had taken all control from me. I hated every minute of it. I had no idea who was coming to my hotel room door, and I had no idea what service I was expected to provide. I hated every minute of it. It was the most traumatic and horrific experience of my life, but as crazy as it sounds, my life was still better than before I had met them. I had a roof over my head, I had food in my stomach, I wasn't withdrawing on the streets in the freezing cold. I would have done whatever it took to keep it there, and I would have never walked out of that hotel room door. Physically, I could have. I was not locked up, I was not tied in a room, my pimps were not there 24/7. Physically, I could have opened my hotel room door, I could have walked out, and I could have asked for help. I never would have. There are 3 reasons why I wouldn't have left, and after working with young people for quite a few years now in similar situations, these are the 3 reasons why people don't just leave. The first is the obvious, the fear. I was afraid of them. There was some physical violence in my situation, and all I could think is if I walk out this door, what are they going to do to me? That fear was real. More so than that, though, it was the fear of the unknown. If I walk out this door, where am I going to go? Where am I going to get my next meal? Where am I going to sleep tonight? Where am I going to get my next fix? And who is ever going to love me again after this? Who is ever going to take care of me? That was much scarier than they were. And the final reason I didn't leave was the psychological hold that they had on me, the trauma bond. It is unbelievable how strong that is. They picked me up off the ground when everybody else had given up on me. They were there for me when nobody else was. They treated me better than anybody had ever treated me before. The best way I can really explain that trauma bond is I'll tell you a very short story. It happened to me after I took my very first trick. One of my pimps came in the room and he sat down on the bed beside me and he looked at me in the eyes, and it was so genuine. Every time I tell this story, I can in fact still picture the moment, and it still feels just as genuine. Logically, I know it's not, but that's how strong it was in the moment. He sat there and he looked at me in the eyes and he said, "Carly, I am so proud of you." And he said it because I told him way back in the luring stage that the only thing I had ever wanted to hear growing up is that somebody was proud of me. Now he said it. Didn't matter anymore who was proud of me or what they were proud of me for. Somebody was finally proud of me. I was finally good at something. I was going to do whatever it took to hear that over and over and over again. This is what human trafficking looks like. So really quickly, just to end, what can everybody do today? Starting today, how can we ignite change? And it's simple. We need to educate others. You need to educate yourself, and you need to educate others on what you've heard today. Continue to look into what human trafficking really looks like. Know the signs. Know how to identify who might be being trafficked, and know where the resources are in your community and what to do if you identify somebody who could be being trafficked. You need to advocate. You need to advocate for change. You need to advocate for more resources, and you need to advocate for more funding specialized in human trafficking. And lastly, we need to, I'm going to put these two together, but we need to know consent, and we need to empower youth. Get people to come and talk to in your schools about what human trafficking is. Talk about the true definition of consent. We were taught wrong growing up. You need to let people know that consent has certain elements that have to be present. It must be clear, it must be coherent, it must be willing, and it must be ongoing. And again, empower our youth. Give them more socioeconomic opportunities. In fact, boost their self-esteem and boost their self-worth. If I can leave you with one thing today, it's that if a young person is empowered, it is incredibly difficult to traffic them. Thank you.
Okay, that was very good. So let me check out something else. All right. I think I'm gonna end it there because I'm looking at the website that we talked about. I'm not in my city, and I joined. So there's some, like, we went through the top part, some of the human trafficking indicators, like aviation, commercial trucking. How does it happen? And we looked at the video Survivor's Perspective, Harley Church. I think we'll check out another one we'll look at the video by Matthew, but I'm gonna do that separately. Okay, so we'll end it there, and I'll see you on the next one.